A monster just tore through American soil. 145 miles per hour, 230 kilometers per hour, sustained. Not gusts, sustained winds at that speed. And it didn't just fly through. It slowed down. It almost stopped. And it sat on top of 50,000 Americans and just destroyed everything underneath it. I have to say, when I looked at the images and the reports coming out of Saipan right now, I genuinely felt sick. Because this is not some remote island in the middle of nowhere that nobody cares about. This is U.S. territory. This is American soil. These are American citizens. And right now, they have no power, no water, no functioning hospital. And they are being told it could be weeks before that changes. Weeks. Let that sink in. Some hard-hit areas of the Northern Marianas could be without power and water for weeks, an official confirmed. NPR. And further in this video, I want to explain something about this storm that most people are not talking about, because there is a detail about the way Sinlaku moved that made this so much worse than it needed to be. Stay with me, this is important. So let's talk about what happened. Typhoon Sinlaku made landfall over the U.S. Northern Mariana Islands at approximately 10:30 a.m. EDT on April 14, 2026. The large eye of the storm passed over both Tinian and Saipan Islands simultaneously. Yale climate connections, both islands, at the same time. According to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, Sinlaku had sustained winds of 145 miles per hour, 230 kilometers per hour, at 8 a.m. EDT, shortly before landfall. Yale climate connections, Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. And this was after the storm had already weakened. Because here is something that most news coverage is not fully explaining. Sinlaku had actually been a Category 5 monster with 175 miles per hour, 280 kilometers per hour, winds just 24 hours before landfall. An eye wall replacement cycle weakened it significantly in that final day. Yale climate connections. So the storm that hit Saipan was already a weakened version of what could have been. And it still did this. I have to say, I want you to think about what that means. If Sinlaku had not gone through that eye wall replacement cycle, if those 175 miles per hour winds had hit the island instead of 145, we would be looking at a completely different scale of catastrophe. Sinlaku's maximum wind speeds peaked at 180 miles per hour as the typhoon traveled over the open ocean on Sunday, making it the most powerful storm on Earth so far this year. CBS News. The most powerful storm on Earth, this year, anywhere, and it hit U.S. territory. Now I want you to hear from the people who were inside this storm, because the numbers tell one story, the human voices tell another. Saipan Mayor Ramon Camacho said during the height of the storm, "It's so difficult for us to respond with this heavy rain, heavy wind to rescue people. Objects are just flying left and right." CBS News. The mayor, out there, in the storm, trying to get to his people while things were flying past him. And then there is Glenn Hunter. He grew up on Saipan. He has weathered typhoon after typhoon on that island his entire life. He told the Associated Press this felt like the strongest yet. He watched at least 3 tin roofs fly past his yard. Rain was seeping into every crevice of his concrete home. It was a losing battle because the rain was coming through everywhere, he said. Every house is just flooded with water, no matter what type of structure you're in. PBS every house, flooded, no matter what type of structure. Concrete homes, flooded. Wooden buildings, destroyed. In the village of Susupe on Saipan, wind tore the roof off a commercial building. A blue sedan lay on its side. Resident Dong Min Lee filmed a car sitting on top of 2 other cars in his apartment building's parking lot below. The winds also tore off part of his balcony railing. NBC News, a car, on top of 2 other cars. That is not a scene from a disaster film. That is what 145 mile per hour winds do to a parking lot. Can I ask you something before we go deeper? Give this video a like and a hype. Share it with someone who has no idea what is happening to these American islands right now, because I promise you, most people watching the news tonight do not know this is happening. Leave me a comment. Tell me if you had any idea Saipan was going through this. It costs you nothing, and it helps me stay on the pulse for you. Now, let's talk about the hospital, because this is the part that I have to say genuinely disturbed me when I found it. The only hospital on Saipan suffered severe flooding. There were also reports of major resorts losing backup generator power. NPR, the only hospital. On an island of 45,000 people, there is one hospital. One. And it flooded during the storm. While people were being rescued, while trees were falling, while roofs were flying through the air, the one place those injured people could go was underwater. I want you to think about what that means for the people being rescued by the mayor and his team in the middle of the storm. You're injured. You need medical attention. The hospital is flooded. Where do you go? And this wasn't a quick event either. This is what makes Sinlaku uniquely devastating. And I promise to explain this, so let me do it now. Most typhoons move fast. They hit, they pass. The wind might be brutal for 2 or 3 hours, then it's gone. Sinlaku was different, deeply different. Before arriving on land, the storm became nearly stationary, hovering about 30 miles off the coast of Saipan for several hours. Its slow pace raised serious concerns about how long it would linger over the islands. CBS News.
Nearly stationary, just offshore, spinning, building, pumping winds and rain into the islands for hour after hour before it even made landfall.
The storm hit the islands Tuesday night local time and continued with a barrage of fierce winds and relentless rains for hours into Wednesday, flipping over cars, toppling utility poles, and ripping away tin roofs. NPR hours. Not minutes. Hours of sustained Category 4 winds, grinding through everything, tearing, shredding, flooding, and the slower a storm moves, the more rainfall it drops. The National Weather Service in Guam forecasted total rainfall amounts of 15 to 25 inches, 380 to 635 millimeters, over Tinian and Saipan. Yale Climate Connections. 25 inches of rain. That is more than half a meter of water falling from the sky, on a small island, with nowhere for that water to go. Storm surge flooding was projected at 5 to 8 feet, 1.5 to 2.4 meters, with seas reaching 20 to 30 feet, 6 to 9 meters, offshore. Yale Climate Connections. A wall of ocean water up to 8 feet high pushing across flat coastal land, on an island that is not large, on an island where low-lying areas are everywhere, on an island with one hospital. That is the full picture. Now let's talk about what Sinlaku destroyed in terms of infrastructure, because this is the invisible catastrophe, the one that will hurt these islands for months, not days. Saipan reported an island-wide power outage starting at 6:32 a.m. Tuesday, with 15,624 people affected. 2 areas on the island were without water, and the remainder was expected to lose water access once backup generators ran out of fuel, according to the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation. Stars and stripes. The backup generators running out of fuel. That is the clock that was ticking while the storm was still raging. Power gone, water going, hospital flooded, roads impassable. A resident on Tinian named Matthew Mazga reported, "While driving around, I noticed numerous wooden and semi-concrete houses with damaged rooftops. Many of our power poles and power lines are down." NPR. Power poles down. Not a few. Many. And when power poles go down on a remote Pacific island, you don't just call the repair crew and have them out the next morning. You wait. You wait for crews to arrive from the mainland. You wait for equipment to be shipped in. You wait for roads to be cleared so the equipment can even reach the poles. FEMA planned to send more personnel to the region and ramp up shipments of supplies. Officials said first responders had still not been able to conduct a full damage assessment as a shelter-in-place order remained in effect. NPR. Even FEMA, with all their resources, could not get a full damage picture yet. Because first responders couldn't safely get to the worst-hit areas, the shelter-in-place order was still active. People were still inside their homes, or what was left of their homes. I did a little research on what this island has already been through, because Saipan is not new to catastrophe. And when I found what I found, I have to say it made this moment feel even heavier. Saipan is the site of one of World War II's bloodiest battles in the Pacific. It was still recovering from 2018's super typhoon U2 when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So let me walk you through that timeline. 2018, super typhoon U2. U2 killed 2 people on Saipan, injured more than 120, and left more than a quarter of the island's 45,000 residents homeless. Most structures on Tinian were destroyed or damaged. FEMA estimated damages at just over $1 billion. Yale Climate Connections, $1 billion in damage from one typhoon in 2018. Then came COVID. An island that was already broken, locked down. Tourism collapsed. The economy collapsed. And then they were finally beginning to rebuild. The president of Northern Mariana College confirmed exactly that. Typhoon U2 had destroyed 85% of the college's Saipan campus. The institution secured $100 million in grant funding to rebuild. The college president said, "Just as we were finally beginning to recover and rebuild, we get hit with this. Climate change is real." He also said he worries about people still suffering from the post-traumatic stress of U2. KENW post-traumatic stress. From a typhoon 8 years ago, that has not gone away yet, and now Sinlaku. He added, "We are an incredibly resilient people, but just because we're resilient doesn't mean that we should be subjected to this on this frequent basis." KENW. That line. That landed on me hard. Resilience is not an excuse for the world to forget about you. Resilience is not a reason to receive less help. So why is this happening? Why is Saipan in the crosshairs like this? Why is this island getting hit again and again? There is a scientific answer, and I want to give it to you properly, because it matters. The Northern Mariana Islands sit directly in the Western Pacific typhoon belt, specifically in a region where warm sea surface temperatures allow storms to intensify rapidly and maintain extraordinary strength. According to Yale Climate Connections, Sinlaku is the classic type of early season super typhoon that one would expect to see when the ocean and atmosphere are on their way toward a strong El Niño event, which currently appears to be the case for 2026 to 2027. Yale Climate Connections El Niño. Remember that name, because that is what is brewing in the Pacific right now. And what El Niño does to typhoons is something every person near the Western Pacific needs to understand. During El Niño episodes, typhoons tend to form farther east, away from Asia, because of warmer waters over the Central Pacific. This means El Niño year typhoons take longer tracks over water before hitting land, resulting in a greater chance of reaching Category 5 intensity. Yale Climate Connections. Longer track over warm water, more time to intensify, more time to become a monster before it hits anything. That is Sinlaku. That is the storm that just destroyed Saipan. And if El Niño strengthens through 2026 into 2027, as scientists are currently projecting, Sinlaku may not be the last storm like this to find the Marianas. This is not random bad luck for these islands. This is a pattern driven by ocean temperatures, a pattern that is intensifying, and a pattern that these 50,000 Americans are sitting directly in the path of. What happens next? What are the critical things that need to happen for Saipan and Tinian to survive this? First, power restoration. That is the most urgent priority. Without power, the hospital cannot function. Without power, water pumping stations fail. Without power, refrigeration for food and medicine disappears. Every hour without electricity on an island like this is a compounding crisis. FEMA dispatched nearly 100 staff, as well as other personnel, to coordinate support across multiple agencies. Nearly 100 FEMA staff. For an island of 45,000 people with no power, no working hospital, and impassable roads, that response needs to scale, fast. Second, the hospital situation needs urgent attention. The flooding of the only medical facility on the island is not a footnote in this story. That is the story. When people are injured, when the elderly need medication, when someone has a heart attack tonight, where do they go? Third, water. With the backup generators running out of fuel, the water system is at risk of complete failure. Water is not a convenience. Water is survival, especially in a tropical climate, especially after a storm that has contaminated everything it touched. And fourth, the mental health dimension. I mentioned the post-traumatic stress from 2018's U2. That was not a throwaway line. These are people who already carry the weight of $1 billion of destruction, of a pandemic, of years of fighting to rebuild. And now they wake up to this. That psychological toll, that repeated trauma, is something the recovery response needs to account for. Not just the buildings, the people inside them. So guys, I want to leave you with something. Most of the world right now has no idea this happened. Saipan is a name most people cannot place on a map. The Northern Mariana Islands, most people have never heard of them. But they are U.S. territory. These are American citizens, 45,000 people, without power, without water, with their only hospital flooded, sitting in the aftermath of the strongest storm on Earth this year. And they have been here before. They know what the long road back looks like. And they are going to need more than resilience to walk it. They are going to need the world to actually pay attention. So share this video. Let people know what happened in Saipan. Check out the other videos in the end screen, including a breakdown of other extreme weather events happening around the world right now that connect directly to what we just talked about. You should really watch those. If you want to support the channel, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. No brands, no sponsors, just coffee. I appreciate every single one of you who keeps this going. Stay safe, guys. Be aware. Bye-bye.